Welcome back, roller derby fans. You're here at the Niagara Park Indoor Stadium. I am the Flat Track Protocol.
I'm Candy Bunce.
And we are here for game number 4 of the day, round 2, kind of round 1 for 5x5 2025.
Round 2, the first round of 2025 5x5 Championship. So this game is the Sydney Roller Derby League B team, currently name pending.
We'll call them Sydney today. Let's
call them Sydney. Versus the Central Coast Southside Derby Dolls combination.
So taking a look over the team rosters for today, on Sydney we have number 128, that's called Power, number 1312, Commando Roll, number 179, Dirty Birdie, 2412, that's Down Under Thunder, number 28, that's Sharky, 300 is Wonder Mop, 325 is Get Bucky, 420 is Scooby Stacks, 74 is Roman Vitriol, number 88 is Minky, number 896 is Craig, and 928 finishing off the roundup is Atis Tim Turner.
And for Central Coast Roller Derby United / Southside Derby Dolls, we have 002, 2 Up, 08, Lady Wreck, 101, Alitude, 111, Glam Cracker, 13, Ventral Vixen, 191, The Disgrace, 1937, Elysian Shields, 29, Whipsy Daisy, 34, Bionic Bambi, 42, Dreaded Gypsy, 78, Platinum RG in their debut game, 808 Salty, and 987 Moxie Monoxide.
A couple of Apex crew here on the list today, one on each team. We have Moxie Monoxide on the Central Coast Southside team.
And we have Princess Candy Bunce not playing in this game because my ankle is still yet to be cleared by the physiotherapist for me to play full contact derby again.
We also have Commando Roll on the Sydney team.
We have Commando Roll. Sorry,
that's what I was talking about. I did realise you were sitting next to me, Andy.
Failed to pick up what you were putting down. So this is a replay of the first round of the 2024 5v5 Nail Biter, which was won in the last jam by Central Coast Southside Derby Dolls. And it was a comeback of about 34 points from halftime. And there's no reason to believe that this game is going to be any less exciting. As the officials get in position, I think we can expect Derby to begin any second now. So we need to decide what we're going to call S2C2. Is S2C2? The house just called them Central Coast Southside. But we might just go with Central Coast. You might hear Southside. You might hear Team White. Lining up to begin, we have a Tiss for Sydney and Glam Cracker for Central Coast. Tiss very quickly through for lead for Sydney. Glam Cracker still stuck at the back. Sydney doing a bit of a 2-and-2 formation. Glam gets past Minky to complete their initial. As the Tiss comes through for 3 points. 3 points and calls off the jam. And I think that's the trend that we're going to see a lot of today. Short jams, one scoring pass. It'll be close either way. As Roman Vitriol, usually a blocker, lines up to jam against Dreaded Gypsy for Central Coast.
Just adjusting some colours on the scoreboard there so we can actually read the scores.
Reading the scores.
Always a good start for commentating roller derby.
But that trick never works, Rocky. Roman toast tops around the outside to get lead in a matter of seconds. Gypsy, half a lap behind. Let's see if we see a short hit and quit again.
Roman's hands already look like they're ready to hit those hips. Steps through a couple of blockers on the outside. Maybe a point or two in there.
Roman's hands were ready to hit those hips before the jam started. 0 points for Southside, the Central Coast. And I'm waiting. Yep. KT just conferring with the outside before awarding all 4 points. So 7 points Sydney, 0 points to South Central Roller Derby. Scooby Snacks lining up against the Disgrace. So all 3 of the jammers I expected to see from both teams out. Scooby Snacks out with the lead once again within 2-3 seconds. The Disgrace being held by Minky at the last second.
Disgrace now out of the pack. About a lap behind the Sydney Jammer here.
Yeah. As Curl's getting sent for a multiplayer, I believe. 4 points for Scoops. Calls it off. Another 4-0 to Sydney. Brings it to 11.
We've been seeing a lot of nickel and dime derby here today, Sam. Sorry, Candy. See, I've been not around Derby so long now that I just don't think in Derby names, apparently.
Apparently. Yeah, it's very much unlike last week. You're going to see, as you said, nickel and dime, what I call the standard heuristic. Glam versus Atis again. So, yeah, looks like 3 jammers on each team.
Both jammers very quickly through the pack there. It doesn't look like Glam managed to get lead there.
No, Atis calls it off rather than having a dogfight.
Glam is not the kind of jammer you want to pick a dogfight with. She will take you down.
She's got bigger teeth than you. Dreaded Gypsy is just enjoying being back in Sydney. Dreaded Gypsy moved to Cairns over Christmas holidays, but has continued to play with their beloved South Central Roller Derby team. As Roman, once again, I don't think you can call it roller skating if the wheels at no point are the things that are touching the ground.
It still takes quite a lot of skill to step like that on roller skates, though.
Nearly. Roman actually did pick up lead before being knocked out of bounds, and has the power to call it off.
Takes advantage of that power, calls off the jam.
I believe someone had to tell Roman that they were lead, and that they should call it off. But that's what teammates are for. Oh, and Scooby versus Grace again. Yep. We'll see how long these matchups last. We'll see if these are matchups in favor of one team or another, or if this is just random allocation of chance. So South Central taking the front. Scoops gets lead again.
Scoops making that look easy around the outside, picking up their lead jammer status. Scoops approaching the pack once again, ready to pick up points here. Is knocked to the outside, stays inbounds though, tries the inside line, gets taken down to her knees.
I'm wondering if Scoobs and Grace played any junior together / against each other. I think they both appear to be, and this isn't just me doing boomer talk, they both appear to be about the same age. And I know that Grace aged up through the Newcastle junior program. And I wonder if Scoobs also did. As Atis lines up against Glam again.
Atis taking the...
Glam has an open track to lead.
Atis caught up in traffic in the pack still. 2 blockers left to go front of pack, recycled back further. Glam ready to pick up points. Passes 1, 2, 3 blockers there. The 4th blocker almost hips up pass, calls off the jam.
Four 0 to South Central, which is the first 4 points on the board. 4 for South Central, 13 Sydney. Low scoring so far, but that's how we expect this to be. Just building building a score one jam at a time, one scoring pass at a time. As Roman lines up against Dreaded Gypsy. South Central in front. Roman tiptoes around the inside again. I think Roman's really enjoying jamming. Taking to it quite well. Lead for Sydney. Gypsy still in on initial, completing initial as Vixen just does a little accidental direction on Roman. Roman's got 3 points in the bank, trying to get that 4th point before calling it off.
That pack awareness of Roman's there. As soon as that penalty was issued to the blocker blocking, stepped straight back onto the track in front of them, knowing full well that they weren't cutting anyone once that penalty was awarded.
And you have no idea how proud I am, because I may have drilled that, not as a coach, but just as a colleague many times during trainings and scrims.
And that's one of the good things about roller derby, right? When we're not here competing, refs do provide feedback to skaters. They help skaters understand the rules better. They coach some of those final rule points, some better game awareness when it comes to the rules.
Well, I mean, I like to think that I've still got some playing in me as Scoops gets lead for Sydney. Gypsy stuck. No, the disgrace. Stuck behind a lot of their own bodies on the ground and swallowed up by a wall of Sydney skaters. Very experienced two-pod of Mando and Minky.
You really don't find that much experience on a B team that often, do you?
Well, I mean, if we're just going to add like sheer experience down under Thunder, also rounding off that tripod to add a significant number of games.
Well, I can count up
in Derby.
I can count up at least 30 between the three of them.
30 games?
30 years of Derby experience.
Grace out. Scoops calls it for 4 points, Sydney. 20 points to 4. And this could be the trend unless South Sydney can do something.
Still just alone 4 points for South Sydney CCRDU combined team on the scoreboard. 21 minutes left on the period clock. First period here at Niagara Park Indoor Stadium.
And I will say, this is not the way I expected this to go.
To be honest, I did expect to see it a little bit closer at this point in the game. Sydney really showing that the training pays off here. The hard work the B team has been doing at Sydney this year.
Yeah. So, once again, Glam almost getting lead. Atis just pipping her at the post and then calling it off 0-0 and moving on to the next jammer. Yeah. And one of the challenges that South Central rollers have is that Central Coast is an hour north of Sydney, and Southside, as the name suggests, is
a good half an hour south of Sydney.
A good
for
half
the most
an hour
part
south
of, it, yeah.
of Sydney. So they don't get to train together as a team. I don't want to categorically say at all, but very often. Having said that, Gypsy through for lead, and Roman through having completed initial. Gypsy needing to try and score some points.
Roman on a scoring pass now into the engagement zone, finds a couple of blockers in a wall. Don't think there was any hips pass. Oh no, at least one there at the back of the pack.
Yeah. The hips being tapped for a good little while before the jam was called dead, allowing Sydney to score 2 points in return, and 2 points for South Central as well. So you've got that geographical distance, and then Gypsy living in Cairns. So, but this has been a combination that's worked on and off since 2019 for Southside Derby Dolls and Central Coast, when they won Division 2 of... Oh, okay.
Scooby stacks jammer up for Sydney, but it looks like we have a star pass for the Central Coast Southside team.
To 2-up. And 2-up knocked out of bounds by Scooby. And then Scooby went out of bounds. 2-up jumping back onto the track, but my little gut said that they jumped in front of two of their teammates, which is one too many. But I'm happy to be wrong, and I'm not currently wearing a whistle. As we have Glam versus Atis again, but 2 up. The jammer of note at the end of that last jam is, of course, one of the juniors that Central Coast have going to the Junior World Cup in July in Brisbane, playing for Team Australia.
And of course, if you find Central Coast's, I think, page on Facebook, you can find some details on how to support them heading off to represent Australia.
Which is very exciting, and we're all very proud. So what we might be seeing is the challenge associated with being able to train together as a team, get that cohesion, as opposed to being just a little bit disjointed. And it's the first game of the season. There will be a chance to gel. But as I said, I expect this scoreline to tighten up. It's only 8-22 at this point. But South Central have such a wealth of experience as Atis gets lead again. Glam knocks it outside by Minky. Minky puts 2 hands on the ground, which means they lose that position. And Glam also intelligently steps onto the track.
Once again, with that incredible pack awareness there.
Candy with a tear in her eye. Being able to teach an old dog new tricks.
Once again, a couple of points up in the air, 4 for Sydney, I think. Just the lone 1 for... it's a Knuckles. It's a 0 for Central Coast. About halfway through the first period of play here, game 4, round 2, 5x5. Roman once again star on head for Sydney Roller Derby League.
And Gypsy for South Central Rollers. And once again, toe stops around the outside for Roman. South Central are really just not getting all the way to the line. They're leaving one shoe.
And you cannot leave even half a shoe for Roman.
Well, it turns out, no, you cannot. Roman is, I think, was a bit of an unknown factor as a jammer. And we are learning. There is a revelation going on as Gypsy gets out of the pack to complete initial, just in time for Roman to score their first 4 points.
Roman saying, no chance the other team are scoring any points on this one. I'm going to call it off. I have the power.
Yeah. Trying to milk a little bit more time to get one of their blockers, Bucky, out of the bin.
And I was talking a few gems ago about the wealth of experience we have on the Sydney Roller Derby League team. What we should also mention is there's also a wealth of experience on the South Coast, or Central South, whatever we're calling it, team.
So this is a little bit of a confession, is that I benched this team last year. So I feel like I'm in a good position to talk about the experience on the South Central team.
But I particularly wanted to call out Glam and Moxie as very experienced skaters on this group.
So you have Glam and Moxie. So there's just Scooby versus Disgrace again. Oh, Scooby recycled, back by 2 up. So Glam, 10 years, 12 years?
At least, yeah.
Moxie, 15
2010,
years?
15 years, I'd have to say.
Disgrace getting lead for South Central Roller Derby. And Scooby passes the star to Minky. You also have Ali.
Yes.
That's at least
10 years and another 10 years there, yeah. So very experienced, both these sides.
Lady Rex for Southside Derby Dolls. Another absolute stalwart of the game.
Minky approaching the pack on her first scoring pass of the game.
1 point to Disgrace. So I don't want to say this in a disparaging way, but yeah, South Central just not capitalizing on the couple of opportunities that they've had.
And those opportunities have come fairly infrequently for that team so far this match.
Yeah, and they need to.
Glam with the star on head for Central Southside.
But here's actually the experience. Glam with lead for South Central Roller Derby. Atis gets through, half a lap behind. Sydney getting to the front. It's becoming a bit of a foot race as both teams try and get to the front, and that is how you have perpetual motion. Glam takes the outside and gets 4 points and calls it off. That was classy. Here's the experience that South Central do not have today. Makita, absent, unfortunately. Haley Damage, absent. There's another 10-year plus skater. Dodge, absent. So that this was the team that I was expecting, not quite the team that was available today. And that's community sport. That's life. Oh, Roman through to the inside as Mando knocks Gypsy to the outside.
Gypsy recycled all the way to the back.
Yep. Unfortunately, Mando's feet were not traveling in a counterclockwise direction. As Roman comes through for 4 points, Gypsy is still at the back being trolled by Minky.
Sneaky Minky, as the house just called her.
I wouldn't. Never. No, the problem isn't that Minky sneaks up on you. The problem is that even if you know Minky's coming, what are you going to do about it? Oh, nice hit out. Another very experienced skater that I probably should shout out is Vixen.
Roman back up on toe step, stepping around the outside of that pack. One blocker to go at the front of the pack. Picks up the points now.
Yeah. Vixen and Bionic Bambi. Once again, like all 2016 era roller derby from Southside and from Central Coast, respectively. But having talked about the experience, both teams are a mix of the experience and very, very new skaters.
The other thing I will point out at this point, Candy, is it's been a very low-scoring game. We're more than halfway through the first period. 4 minutes in fact left. We've still only seen a total of 35 points on our leading team.
Yeah. One thing that we will point out is Atis lead in a power jam start against Gypsy.
Gypsy
on
is
a scoring point now. Gypsy's been released.
Back on the track. Needs to complete the initial pass before picking up points, though.
But has no problems with that. There's a little bit of confusion with the jam refs there for a second.
They have got it sorted out, though.
Yes. So just 8-0 to Sydney on that one, which, as far as power jams go, could be a lot worse. And that's the first mistake. That also may give us the first changing of our jammer lineups, because the power jam meant that there was... Oh, and this is interesting. Scooby is now lining up against 2-Up. 2-Up jamming for the first time, has been playing as a pivot up till now. And let's see what this 16-year-old can do.
Now, 2-Up's day would have been yesterday, right? Two-Up recycled back to the very rear of the pack. That's Minky doing the damage there.
Scooby getting lead for Sydney.
2-Up back into the pack, taking the inside line, finds a wall of black that is not letting them get too far at all.
Do they get through? And so we have Sydney on a scoring pass, half a lap behind South Central coming in.
Jam is called once again as a pile of blockers go down on the track. Maybe a jammer in there too.
Mando on the ground, holding their shoulder. But I think it's okay. 2 points Sydney, 1 point South Central roller derby. The officials in the middle just talking about a little bit of potential late contact. So...
And while we mention those officials, actually, we'll let this jam get underway and we'll come back to the officials.
Yeah.
Roman for SRDL is your jammer of record.
But Glam has lead. And let's see if Glam wants to have a foot race with Roman.
Glam wants more than a foot race.
Some argy-bargy. Knocks Roman to the outside. Says, I'm bigger, hungrier than you.
Glam gets lower, goes straight through the pack on the outside. It was like there was no blockers there for Glam.
Craig being held as a bunny at the back. And Glam says, I don't want 1 point, I want all of them.
Now, this list was up to date as of a couple of games ago when it was sent to me by the tournament head official.
Oh, can I do it? Can I do it from memory?
Okay.
Okay, so in head official, we have Claire, JREF, we've got Geek Girl, we have Killer Tits, and on the outside we have Penalty, Mad Tricks, and Knit Tink Police.
And your spare alternative is Velvet Whiplash.
And NSO's, you can read off the list, please.
And for the NSOs, actually, we'll get to this jam first.
Atis has lead for Sydney with Gypsy half a lap behind. Atis, 4 points. Clinical. 4 points calls it. Does not let Gypsy score any points. Gypsy says, please may I? Denied.
Now, it says even Steven in front of me. I'm going to say even Steven.
Even Steven.
We also have Sidley Whiplash. We have Fantastic. We have Carnix, Monster, Horizontal, Seat Lord, Leo Slayer, and Sly Skater. So, of course, a roller derby could not happen without a great team of officials, so we thank every one of them for their time this tournament.
And speaking of years and years of experience, yeah, some of the names on that list off. And conversely, 2 up, not years and years of experience being on this planet. Through full lead for South Central Roller Derby. Scoobs half a lap behind. 1, 2, 3, 4 points for 2 up. Calls it off.
So I know that I refereed with John F. Kennedy, and I haven't had stripes on in 12 years. So definitely a very, very experienced crew there. I could go through some others in the middle there as well. I know Fantastic, also one of the original Newcastle members, has been around roller derby for a long time. Seath also has a lot of experience out there in the middle.
Yeah, and Leo Slayer. Yeah, they're just.
We're in good hands today.
We're in very good hands, and it's been a well-run day.
Well, it's not raining inside. That's always a good start.
It wasn't raining on the inside. We didn't do magic last round. We just had a drip. We had what I was told in basic to call slow flooding.
Very slow flooding.
Very slow flooding, but just enough flooding to just fast enough to be a problem.
22 plays 45 here with 7 minutes and 8 seconds left on the period clock during this timeout. So it's still very achievable for the Central Coast Southside United combined squad. Only needs a good power jam or two to really put them back in play for a leading role in this.
And we're starting to see them try some things. We're starting to see South Central Roller Derby change it up, try some different jammers, try some different jammer rotations. Now we have Glam versus Roman. We haven't seen that before.
No, not at all. With a little fist bump at the beginning of the jam there as they lined up on the jammer line. Some jammer on jammer love.
So Glam and Roman both playing for the Sydney Roller Derby League charter team.
So Roman straight down the inside is out, is your lead jammer. Glam, however, recycled back. That's Commando doing the damage again.
Yeah. Bambi just needs to be careful not to drive up the back of Commando Roll. As Glam gets out for initial.
Roman's still caught up in traffic at the beginning of the pack. Calls it off though. Still had about half a lap they could have pushed a bit further with, but playing it safe.
Only 3 points on that. Didn't get the full 4. Maybe could have taken the time. But 0 points the other way is still 0 points. Atis versus Gypsy. I feel like we have seen this before. And of course, Gypsy getting lead for South Central. Atis nearly getting through, but stepping outside, getting recycled all the way back. So
Start comes off head.
Big opportunity for South Central to get some points. Gets past 2, gets past 3, gets past 4. Just behind Atis as they both exit the track. And let's see if they will risk another scoring pass or if they'll call it.
Pack moving a little faster than we've seen for some of the jams this game. Getting around to turn 3 this time.
4-0 for South Central Roller Derby. So we talk a lot about this jammer, that jammer, but a lot of the work that goes into getting lead is happening with those blocking packs. And that's why it may not be entirely this jammer versus that jammer when Mando and Minky are making a hole that you can just run down the outside of.
2 up versus Roman this jam. Roman is out first, is your lead jammer. 2 up is caught in traffic at the back of the pack. He's taken down to their knees. One Sydney blocker to go.
Minky to block, it's a beat, and gets through as Roman enters the pack to start scoring points.
Roman past the first sets of hips. There's 1 to go. Roman gets past, picks up the points, calls the jam off.
So 2 up having some success, but not on the whole much more success than the other jams that came before. And it may be more about the blocking packs. As I said, Roman did have an entire lane to run up the outside and then just 1 to beat, stepped around Elysian Shields to get lead.
Glam Cracker star on head here for the Central Coast South Side team.
Versus Scooby Snacks from Sydney.
Scooby
Snacks. Toe stops around the outside, leaning on the chest of Bionic Bambi to get lead.
Glam is now also out of the pack. Star came off the head there somewhere, is now back on. Scooby taken to the outside of the track. Was that Platinum and Uggy?
That is Platinum Uggy.
Great blocking there from Platinum.
Yeah, so both teams, and you talked about nickel and dime. I talked about both teams very much playing out of the same playbook. This region has a lot of potluck. It's got a lot of sort of mixed coaching. Central Coast will come down and scrim with Sydney, so they know each other's game plans. That there aren't secrets as Atis faces off against Dread Gypsy. And one of those things that's being drilled very well, Atis laying out the disgrace. And I just wasn't sure if the hand left the body.
Gypsy taken to the outside by Down Under Thunder.
Atis getting lead, but then getting recycled back to the middle of the pack. Mando going to the bin for, I think, a directional.
I think it was.
And Atis is now out and will begin scoring in about 7 of your Earth seconds.
Gypsy caught up in traffic in the pack. Not making too much progress. Does find a way through those blockers.
Yeah. So, Nasty from Sydney pointing to the bench, trying to buy time, asking Atis to call it as late as possible in order to have Mando in the penalty box for less seconds in the next jam.
And I think that was a successful strategy. Mando is standing in the penalty box, will be released early on in the next jam.
Yeah. Atis possibly could have risked, given that South Central were at the back, because having seen that strategy, Sydney were also trying to run the pack in order to buy more seconds. So they took the pack at the back and held pack at the back. That meant Atis could have gotten past a couple of hips or given it a go, but also she followed orders as 2 up his lead versus Roman, and this is a matchup we're seeing regularly now. Roman's out, RG goes to the bin, Mando's released from the bin, 2 up gets 4 points. Let's see if they're willing to train. And we are actually seeing a signal from Jack on the bench to keep going, to take this jam to another jam. So this is the first real change of tactics, and let's see if they can start clawing back that point. Roman getting 4 points coming through, but 2 up coming through.
Also picking up 4 points there.
Yes. RG standing in the bin.
2 up with the power to call this off whenever they feel the need. 2 up approaching the pack, finds Commando's hips at the back of the pack, takes him to the inside.
Two up calls it off. after getting knocked down. With Roman having scored another 4 and 2 up. Change angle. Change cameras. Yeah. 2 up just getting some attention there for a second, and we're actually going to cut this bit out of the feed. So, yeah.
Make a note.
So, yeah. What was I going to say?
Yes.
And I don't know for the stream what I actually want to call her.
Gypsy? Just Gypsy?
DG?
What's wrong with just Gypsy?
That's wrong.
Yeah.
With just
Traded?
yeah.
It's not the worst name I've had in Derby.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to the action here. The good news is everybody is okay.
Everybody is okay. I don't believe that was called for injury, so 2 up does not need to sit for 3, but they are receiving attention, and that is for the best. Glam facing up against Scooby.
Glenn takes the outside, steps around, is the lead jammer. Another example there of great offense in the pack, making that path clear for Glam.
Yeah. Oh.
Almost
Okay.
the same again.
Scooby knocked to the outside by Bionic Bambi, and then Bionic Bambi running back, and unless Bambi stepped out of bounds, I'm not quite certain why Scooby wasn't issued a cut.
And that is half time.
And Glam calling the jam dead and then receiving a penalty. So a lot happening that jam. But the main thing that's happened on the score is 3 points to South Central Roller Derby, 0 points to Sydney. But the next second half will begin as a power jam for Sydney, unless this gaggle of zebras in the middle
Change their mind.
Yeah, change their mind or come to some other conclusion. But failing that and waiting for the whistle for intermission to be officially begun, as Nasty comes and talks to the officials, the score is 65 points for Sydney, 39 points for South Central Roller Derby, and that is a very defensive, very low score for a half of Roller Derby.
Oh, absolutely. Keeping Sydney to 65, I think, is what Central Coast Southside can be really proud of at the moment. Sydney had the capabilities in some of those jams to do a lot more damage, but the defence on both sides has been exceptional. Taking a look at the points per jam graph at the moment, and you can really see it's been nickel and dime derby the whole way along. There's been one of that one jam where we saw points and run long, and you can see that one very obviously in the bar chart.
Yeah, and there's one power jam that occurred that was an 8-point jam. We're going to see our second power jam in the beginning of the second half. But given that they're staying within 30 points or so, it means that you are really only 1.5 power jams away from bringing this back, from coming back, if they can work out what the right recipe is.
Yeah, look, and Sydney have a few more leads over Central Southside, and that is probably the deciding factor at this point. If you were on the bench and you have benched Central Coast Southside before, what would your advice at this half time be, Candy?
So last time in exactly last year tomorrow, this was kind of the scoreline. I think it was like about 100 to 60. And I identified one jammer that was really hurting us. And essentially what I decided and communicated to the jammers was that every time that jammer got out, so every time that jammer jammed, we would even if we got lead, we would take that to a short jam. But every time it was one of the other jammers, just because they weren't as good as that jammer, if we got lead, we were taking it to 2 minutes. And the concept was to reduce the overall amount of track time that their best jammer was having by maximizing the amount of track time that the others had. And it had limited success, but within 10 minutes of the second half, we were within 5 points.
Yeah, and to Sydney, I would say watch those lines. The times that they have missed out on and not stopped someone, they've let them through on the inside of the outside line. So just keep an eye on where those blockers are positioned on the lines. Hold the line, hold the line, hold the line. That would be my advice to Sydney at this point.
I mean, Sydney just have to keep doing what they're doing. It's South Central who have to sit down and think about a way to change the trajectory of this game. But anyway, that is
our half time.
Yep.
I've been Flat Track Protocol.
I still am Candy Buns.
And we will join you for the second half shortly.
Well, welcome back here to Niagara Park, where the fourth game of the day and final game of the day of the second round, which is the first round for 2025 of 5v5, is taking place. Sydney Roller Derby versus South Central
Coast Roller Derby League, Southside combined.
Well, so the acronym that we took to TGSS last year was SCRD, South Central Roller Derby.
South Central Roller Derby. There we go.
And that is where our stats may be found on Flat Track Derby stats, but I don't think there's enough data in there to really give a good sense of who. Well, I nearly said who we are. As my confession, I have one lobe of my heart with each of these teams. I'm currently training with Sydney and Southside Derby Dolls were my first league. They were the league that taught me to skate as a brand new, very uncoordinated youngling of 37. And now I'm still a very uncoordinated wannabe.
It has been a long day, Candy.
So as we return to begin the second half, we have Atis at the line, and we have Glam just resting in the penalty bin, which means that the officials obviously didn't change their mind as to whatever happened.
Nope, still a power start for Sydney Roller Derby League.
Yeah. And I shall be looking over at that footage to see whether or not Scooby got away with the cut, or whether or not my eyes are just going.
All right, game play about to commence. 5 seconds goes up. 30 seconds. Nope, 5 seconds goes up. Jam is underway.
So an interesting start. The three Sydney blockers each isolating and separating one of the South Central blockers so that no formations or tripod could be made. Atis gets lead, gets knocked out, and once again Ali must have stepped out. All gone no pack, so that Atis could just step back inside, take lead. He's now on a scoring pass.
Wall of three in front of them though.
As Glam is released from the bin, hat in hand, comes to the bin and aggressively starts working on that tripod.
SGC2 blockers really not giving Atis a chance here to find a way through. Does pirouette to the inside, picks up the 4 points. Glam is now out and eligible to score points too.
And containing that power jam to 4 points for the full 30 seconds was very good work from the
Glam
blockers.
putting a pressure on right now, forcing the call off. Maybe one blocker passed. I'm not quite sure there before the jam came to an end.
So remember, there is a point in the bin. One blocker, 2 points. Very smart call off by Atis. 6 points that jam, 71.
39.
39. Roman versus Gypsy. So we're back to normal resumption from the first half.
3 wall at the back, keeping Dreaded Gypsy at bay. Awesome blocking there from the Sydney Roller Derby League blockers.
Once again, Roman bouncing on toe stops in this. One more to beat. Bionic Bambi can't hold Roman for long. Lead jam for Sydney, and then Dreaded Gypsy not far behind.
Both jammers out. Pack speeds up a little bit.
Elysian Shields released from the box.
Slowing it back down as the jammers approach.
Roman glances off Vixen to go out of bounds. Apparently picking up 2 points, but I didn't see that. But 2-0 to Sydney, 71-39. And once again, just adding to that score line brick by brick until it actually grows into something substantial. Scooby versus the Disgrace. Lady Rex knocked to the ground, falls small, and waits for everyone to pass. Scooby passes and picks up lead for Sydney. Disgrace.
Not far behind, coming around the track and now about half a lap behind Scooby.
Yeah, Sydney setting up at the front, allowing Scooby to come past, get 3 points, 2 or 3 points, and call it off before South Central can score in return. 76 plays 39.
Those scores still staying low in every jam so far in the second half.
Does someone need to tell them that this isn't sanctioned?
But the points do matter.
And South Central calling an official review.
Very late official review call there. Yeah, off you go, Candy. And while Candy's heading to the middle on the Flat Track Protocol, you're watching Apex TV. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, hit the bell, make sure you get notified when uploads happen. This will probably be the last game of the day that we upload, so you want to hit that bell to make sure you get notified next time we either go live or upload games on delay. Don't forget also to hit the like button, share the video as well. Glam taking a seat on the jam line. Less than 26 minutes of roller derby left here from Niagara Park Indoor Stadium on the beautiful Central Coast, New South Wales, Australia. A venue that has had a lot of derby played in it over the years. Home of various tournaments, the East Coast Invitational, an old one, hosting many ERDs here, and plenty of rounds of 5x5 at this venue. So it's a well-used roller derby venue here at Niagara Park.
So, South Central Roller Derby are seeking a penalty on the jammer for a cut track. And they're saying that the jammer was knocked out of bounds, and then they stepped back onto the track, and then they called off the jam. And they were supposed to, if they cut someone when they stepped onto the track, the jammer has to step off the track before calling it off. And and because seeding is the first action that they need to take, remaining on track and calling it off, even if they're in the act of skating off, it means that it's not the first action of the jammer. So the officials will now be talking about whether or not that's what they saw, and then they'll be talking about the thing that I will say is it wasn't clear who the jammer cut. It was more just, they went out of bounds. I was like, okay, but did they step in front of someone?
Yeah, and unless you can, if you can go to the official review knowing exactly who that cut was on, and all of the information you need for the refs to analyse, you've got better odds, I find.
And it looks like that was not upheld. It looks like there is no, It looks like there has been no penalty issued, and I think it's because the bench didn't really identify who the cut was on. Just kind of did leaving the track's illegal. as Glam gets lead.
Glam slides out of the front of the pack for lead.
Yes, but did not slide until they were past all the hips, which meant that they did get lead. She did get lead. And
Star movement?
Yes, Atis is through for their initial for Sydney. Glam gets past 1, 2, 3, 4, calls it off. In what is very much a signature move of Glam, getting past the last blocker, swiveling their hips in a transition, and calling it as they do a classy power slide.
And possibly sticking your tongue out at the blockers they just passed as well.
Well, I mean, that's the thing with the visor that Glam wears, is she could be pulling any face under that, and we would never know. Roman versus Gypsy.
Gypsy caught up in a three-walling triangular formation at the back of that pack. Commando puts a last-ditch effort on trying to get them off and does actually succeed in the momentum, taking them off track.
Minky looking very innocent after knocking Gypsy off track. I don't know if Minky's feet were quite going in the right direction, or if Minky's got a guilty conscience, or if Minky's just cheeky. Meanwhile, Roman puts on 4 points for Sydney, taking their team tally to 80.
Roman approaching the engagement zone to pick up some more points now. Steps to the inside, comes up against a solid wall.
Solid wall of Vixen. Deposits Roman to the outside for a second time.
To the inside this time.
This time taking them all the way back 20 feet. As the star is passed to Ali at the front. And South Central are out on their initial.
Roman still got that power to call off the jam. Decides to do it now.
Eight points to nil that jam for Sydney. And while I don't have the numbers in front of me, I highly suspect that what we're seeing is probably every second jam at least being Sydney's lead, and 8 points for, 4 points against, 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. And Scooby versus Disgrace. Disgrace just knocking Scooby casually down on the way through to get lead jam. Scooby all the way at the back, and once again very, very nearly flirting with the concept of a cut track if Salty had position. Disgrace knocks Birdie to the ground, slides past to hopefully get their point. 1, 2, 3, past the 4 set of hips, calls it a little late, and we'll see if that costs them. Yes, 4 points South Central, 2 points to Sydney, and this is one of those things, where sort of match experience and training comes into it. Even if they're both playing the same style of derby, Sydney are doing it with a little bit more discipline.
Yeah, and that's what's led Sydney to now almost double the score that S2, C2 have put on. Which
does fit that pattern of 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. I wouldn't be surprised if it's only 2-1 lead jam.
Artis up against Glam on the jammer line. We're in an official timeout at the moment. I think, is it a track repair timeout?
There are people conversing with the scorers.
All right, we've got a bit of a dance party happening here in venue. Stand by for a copyright strike.
We'll just cut this. I don't mind going through and cutting all of this dead time if it gets us a fun product.
Got a fair bit of dancing happening out on the track now.
Well, this should be a very high spirit game. This friendly game. Central Coast have a couple of players that play in the charter team for Sydney, And very often Central Coast will come and scrim with Sydney. There's a lot of really good relations between a lot of players on this team. So I don't think this is going to get ugly.
Atis and Glam. Atis takes the outside, Glam the inside.
Atis on the outside was nearly knocked out of bounds and managed to hold themselves in with Minky.
Jammers out on each other's tail. It is Atis as the lead jammer. Glam takes over though, puts a hit on as the jammer's called off.
Glam knocking Atis to the ground at the last possible opportunity to do that legally. But I'm going to say that they did do it
legally
before they weren't allowed to. And it definitely one for the highlights reel. Just going to make a mental note there.
Roman Vitriol Jammer star on helmet for Sydney Roller Derby League. Number 42 Dreaded Gypsy for S2. I will get that eventually.
SERD setting up at the front. Vixen knocking Roman outside. Allowing enough time for Dreaded Gypsy to get lead.
Dreaded Gypsy approaching the engagement zone, ready to pick up points for Central Coast Southside. Oh, gets taken down on the inside of the pack.
Yeah, Gypsy thinking that she'd passed the worst of it, and then at the last second, a Craig appeared.
Roman now out of the pack as well, not lead jammer, ready to pick up points though. Central Coast Southside playing that safe there, calling it off before Roman can pick up any points.
Gypsy picking up all 4 points. I was very curious to see whether or not Craig ever
conceded a point.
They're protecting it.
There was definitely only one to pass, I think, as they were hitting the pack on that scoring pass before the big hit taking them down.
Once again, we see Scooby versus the Disgrace. White taking the front. Minky ready to cause havoc. But 2 up.
Recycling Scooby all the way to the back.
Yeah. Never underestimate the junior.
Scooby finding traffic at the rear of the pack. Takes the outside line. Dances around a couple of blockers there.
2 up gets lead for Sydney as the Disgrace continues to struggle to push on a very strong wall.
As Scooby approaches the pack, scoring pass time, picks up 1, picks up 2.
And star pass to Moxie from South Central coming in to score. Scooby on her knees calls it off just in time. And now we all wait to see how many points. How many points? 1. 1 solitary point to Sydney. 87 plays 51. So it's no longer that 2-1, but it's staying at that 30, 35. It's probably 2 power jams away now that we're in the era of no lap points. But Glam with a power jam. So
Pack rolls back over the jam line before the start there, or as the jam starts there. Glam comes out, is your lead jammer, stepping through the pack there with ease.
Yeah. So I think what happened at the end of the last jam was that Scooby was successful in calling off the jam in a situation where they should not have been able to call off the jam for reasons of she may have gone out of bounds and then back in and then called it. So getting a penalty after the event, allowing Glam to put 8 points on the board before Scooby even steps onto the track to do their initial. Nearly gets through, but gets knocked down.
Glam picking up more points there. Finds some distraction for the Sydney blockers. No trouble at all caused by them.
Exactly what South Central needed. Scooby picking up another penalty, and I think that Scooby's got a problem with her skates.
I think you might be right there.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a broken pivot cup or something like that.
They aren't looking at them straight away while sitting in the penalty box though, so...
which means that Glam, ice cold, calls the jam again. Probably not ice cold in this situation. It's going to give the Sydney team an opportunity to work out what's going on. I wouldn't be surprised if they sub another jammer in for equipment reasons. But 15 points for South Central, and that was the first break they needed. And the first chink in Sydney's armour as Nasty calls a timeout for Sydney. So they can discuss and regroup.
Yeah, good use of timeouts from Nasty there. It's the first jam in a while that's actually been a detriment to Sydney. So making a break here, having a chat to the team.
And it looks like they are subbing Atis in to sit for Scooby. So I don't know if it's a problem with the skate.
There's definitely something going on over there with a leg or a skate.
I really hope that isn't a problem with an ankle.
The house is confirming that it looks like a gear malfunction, so I think we might have been right on the first call there, Candy.
Yeah. And you just... It just seemed that way as Dreaded Gypsy sets up for a power jam. Sydney trying to run it, and South Central being sucked in to keeping pack. If they had have stayed there, then the pack wouldn't already be half a lap across. But Dread's out on the outside. Possibly should have gotten awarded the lead. Knocked down, and now South Central locking down that pack, not letting Sydney run out. But Minky knocking Dreads as Atis has returned to the track. And now it's anyone's game. Atis getting lead for Sydney. So that is not the result that South Central were hoping for when they called it with Scoops still in the box. But I have a feeling that that call had a little bit to do with good sportsmanship, seeing that Scoops was in a bit of distress, wanting to not take too much advantage of that situation. Tis gets 4 points, calls the jam, takes it to 91 to 66. I don't know about you, but I don't think there's any room for that kind of sportsmanship around here. We're in it to win it.
So that's
those of you who don't know me, that's my sarcastic tone. Otherwise known as my tone. The Disgrace versus Roman.
So you're suggesting, Candy, if you're speaking, you are being sarcastic.
In a past life, I may have had a black fedora and said that I was always sarcastic and always serious, like 90 to 10%. Roman getting lead for Sydney as Disgrace has one to beat, steps around Birdie, and is half a lap behind Roman. But I expect what we'll see is 3 to 4 points from Roman, and then a call off, falling to her knees, not allowing Disgrace to get any points, just mean-spirited.
Just a quarter of Derby left to play today. Sydney now on 95 points. Central Coast Southside on 66.
Yeah. And simultaneously, we have a game which is firmly in Sydney's grasp, and yet tantalizingly close. Like this could be 2 jams away from a turnaround, but it's not. So jam starts with Minky completely
out of position. I saw that too.
Yeah, Glam versus Atis. As the refs blink their eyes and just tell themselves they didn't see what they clearly just happened before their eyes, because it's so outlandish that of course it never happened.
No, there's no way Minky did that.
And meanwhile, Minky's better than that. Atis has lead for Sydney. And Glam is now completed initial for South Central as Moxie goes to the bin. 4 points to Sydney. Atis calls it early in order to maximise the amount of time where they have the blocker advantage with Moxie in the bin. 4-0 should take it to 99 to 66.
So plenty of 5x5 roller derby to come for the rest of the year as well. Round number 3. That's at Hawkesbury.
And number 3 at Hawkesbury. Do you have a date for us?
I'm about to.
Salty jams for the first time with Roman Vitriol. Now, I used Salty quite a lot last year. I believe last year was their first season, and I just got very excited to see Salty get lead for South Central. This is what they need to do. They need to try new things. They need to throw things against the wall, see what happens. Roman is now out for Sydney. Salty half a lap ahead. Moxie out of the bin. So Salty bursts through, gets 3 points, calls it off. To some very big cheers from the South Central bench. And with success like that, maybe we'll see Salty jam again.
Let's hope so. It is the 25th of May at Hawkesbury PCYC for round number 3.
So the 25th of May at Hawkesbury. So if you're listening to this, or if you're watching this, looking at the cameras, yes, probably more watching than listening, and you want to come watch that, I believe that you can pre-purchase tickets for $15 or it's $20 on the day.
Or if you can't make it on the day, you can always watch it later on Apex TV.
Yes.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell so you get notified when it goes online.
Oh, I'm uncomfortable now from the shameless self-promotion.
Oh, that's about the 4th time I've said that today.
Meanwhile, the Disgrace is jamming. And speaking of new jammers, we have Craig jamming for Sydney. As the Disgrace has lead for South Central. So this is 2 leads in a row for South Central.
It's a question of how much they can capitalise these leads, though, and that's the key to putting themselves back into this.
And very sneakily, and I don't think legally displaying it in their hand, the star has been passed to Minky. And as I said, I believe that Minky is holding onto that star too firmly and not adequately displaying the star and not being held to account. So I don't want to cast aspersions.
I might need to remind you, you don't have a whistle right now, Candy.
Minky is not being held to the same standard that I would expect everyone else to be held to. That's all I'm saying.
I think Candy is saying, I politely disagree, ref.
And that jam leads ends with 6 points to South Central and 2 points to Sydney. Sydney have crossed the 100-point mark and are 102 points to 75.
So it's a 27-point game.
Just tantalisingly close as Glam gets lead in a matter of seconds. Atis being held by as many of her own blockers as the opponents. Through now on initial.
Glam having half a track to play with here. Hits the engagement zone, ready to pick up those points. Is nice and low. A little bit of glitter from her offensive blockers. Picks up the 4 nice and easily. Calls off the jam.
Yeah. So as we approach the last 10 minutes of the game, this chipping away, it's starting to show dividends. But I think at some stage, Central Coast need to go all in.
And what does all in look like in this situation?
So once again, if you've seen, and I use that poker analogy well. If you are a jammer, so that jam, for example, Glam gets lead in 4 seconds. First scoring pass, jam gets through without being touched. The opposing jammer gets held for 10 seconds. If you math that out over 2 minutes, adding 10 seconds to do each lap, this may mean that you score 20 points and the other team scores 12.
Yep.
But that's an 8-point.
Now, we might be able to do that 4 or 5 more times with the clock remaining that we have.
Yeah.
That would be enough to put them back in the game. If they did 5 more times of that, that is the points they need.
Yeah. And maybe it's 20 to 12, not that big a thing, but if it's 20 to 8, if you see a mismatch, and let's use poker as an example. You think you've got a good hand. You think that the blockers that you've got right now have got the number of the blockers that they've got on track. You think the blockers that you have the number of the jammer that they've got on track. Maybe like you've just got to take a risk, because like I joke about it being sanctioned, but it's not sanctioned. If it doesn't actually matter if you lose by 30 points or lose by 60 points, I'm talking about taking a risk.
Now,
and speaking of, Moxie is jamming versus Roman Vitriol for the first time.
Moxie taken to the outside of the track, recycled there to the back of the pack.
And this is the other thing that we're talking about, is trying different things. 2 up goes to the bin. And Roman awarded lead and then given a track cut, which I'm not surprised about. I had questions, but I wasn't certain. Moxie should be awarded lead, as KT puts the whistle in her mouth, and then does not award lead.
No, lead had been taken before the cut.
No, it should not have been. Or
we'll come back to that.
We will come back to that, but Moxie picking up 4 points, and this not lead could actually be the long jam that that I'm saying that South Central need to try, and now they don't have a choice.
And
this is what we call a compulsory trade.
Moxie approaches the pack on ready to pick up more points. Gets taken to the inside.
By Bucky.
Tries the inside again. Toe stops on the line. Recycled again to the back of the pack.
As Roman is back on track and should still be on initial. Moxie dealing with a very strong pack of Curls, Mando and Bucky.
45 seconds left on the jam clock. I see points up on Roman though.
I would be very surprised if there wasn't an official review at the end of this.
Definitely, I'd be reviewing this one too if I was a bench manager.
Yeah. That's if they've got an official review. One half is just flowing into another. So Roman coming round for another scoring pass, and now it's at 8 points apiece, and Moxie going to the bin as the fatigue sets in from that long jam. And that's the risk. That's the danger. As I said, they didn't have a choice.
Yes.
Like the South Central's hand was forced there, but I'm going to be very interested to watch the replay of this, and I encourage all of you to, not just me, to watch this replay and to slow down the YouTube and watch the particular juicy bits 3 or 4 times until you can really call out my officiating errors in the first 2 games.
So I should watch those replays, just for that note. So for all the officials out there today, don't you worry. I'll be watching those games back, and I'll be sending Candy a full review.
And then hit me up on Facebook Messenger and tell me exactly what I did wrong. Particularly if you're a family member of a jammer that you think that
or you are the jammer.
Unfairly awarded. So now Sydney's starting with a power jam, and Craig lining up.
So what I did hear from the house going into that official review was it looked like officials were taking a look at those scores.
Yeah. Sorry, there was an official? I missed
that. There was. Sorry, not an official review, an official timeout.
Official timeout, yeah. As I said, there's definitely no way. And yeah, it looks like they did take 4 points off Sydney, so Roman was still on initial.
Craig jamming for Sydney Roller Derby League.
Yes. One thing I really like about this game, you very often see the same 3 to 4 jammers for each team for the entire game.
Moxie standing in the penalty box.
But both teams have really tried a number of different things.
Craig approaching now on a scoring pass.
Moxie stepping on.
Moxie still needing to make an initial before eligible to score any points here.
Yes. Moxie taking the cover off, which is good. Handing it to Ali, and Ali bursting out of the front of the pack to complete initial for South Central as Craig comes through for the second scoring pass. Gets past most, gets knocked to the inside and calls it off.
Great team communication there as Craig was coming around hitting the engagement zone, showing her blockers exactly what she wanted them to do there, and then executing perfectly, making that path for Craig through the pack.
Craig executing the drill that she had us run on Thursday.
There's a reason she ran that drill on Thursday, and it was exactly that, right?
It was in case we made her jam. So 114 to 87. It's still staying at that roughly that 25 to 35 point mark.
Glam taken to the outside of the pack there. Looks like a multiplayer block issue
Glam
there.
gets lead for South Central Roller Derby. Atiz stuck at the back of the pack, getting offense, but with a full wall ahead. Knocked to the inside by Lady Wreck.
Power jam. Sorry, not a power jam.
Not a power jam. But points for Glam. Now it's a power jam for Sydney, and it is 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, Glam. Curse of the commentator there. I called it too early.
Glam has been so good this game. So safe. I did not see that call. But now Atiz on a scoring pass. And we'll see if Glam will have time coming out of the box to pick up some more points, because this is now a 2 minute jam. Glam having gotten lead and then lost it means that Atiz cannot gain lead, which means that no one has the power to call it off except the jam timer. Glam through for 4 points.
45 seconds left on the jam clock. Only just over 4 minutes and that left in the period clock. So wrapping up the game here, coming to the pointy end. Glam approaches the engagement zone, steps past Mando, and another blocker there. Slips through the pack on the outside, unchallenged at all.
Yeah. Now, talking about the clock, South Central Roller Derby have one timeout and an official review left. To give them any chance of coming back, they probably need to call a timeout after this, and then call an official review after the next jam to really maximize the attempts to get this out. Both jammers looking slightly tired, I'm going to say. Not as tired as I would look.
I'll definitely look much tireder than them.
But that jam ends with Glam picking up 12 points for South Central Roller Derby and Atiz picking up 8 points for Sydney.
Look, I've been here today commentating and running tech, and I think I'm already that tired.
Okay, now South Central are tantalisingly close on 99.
We have a 23-point game now, so it's still staying within about that same margin. Central Southside are managing to keep answering those points Sydney put up.
And I said, I am really happy that they have been trying new things. They have had their opportunities, but Sydney's just always had an answer. It's been a really good game. Roman gets lead for Sydney. Gypsy just falling bad and having quite a ginger get up, and it's called off.
Once again, a huge thank you to Central Coast Roller Derby United for putting this event on today. Takes a lot of work from a league to put an event like today on, where you've got 4 games, a bunch of crews, all the other things that go on around Roller Derby, the raffle sales, the house commentary, all of those other roles to fill. So well done, Central Coast Roller Derby United, and thank you for having us here at Niagara Park. Taking a look over the points per jam for this half, we've had a few bigger ones for Sydney. I think that's where the real damage has come in. Those uncontested big points. Not both of them were uncontested. The first one especially, the big tall tower. You can see the tallest tower on the graph going up. Uncontested there. About half the points contested on the next biggest tower. But Sydney regularly getting that lead. Putting a little bit on every jam or two. Really not giving Central Coast a chance to catch them. Just keeping those points ticking over.
Yeah, you can see there's. Not to contradict you, but I think it's actually about the consistency, and I think the consistency and the discipline is what has led to the pressure that then caused the mistakes, which made the power jams, which then lead to the blowout jams.
Yeah. So in context, those jams are about everything that's gone on the jam before, building upon it, and the way that the blockers have been behaving as well on the track. There's been some really incredible defence. They're keeping it a very low-scoring game, as we mentioned at the beginning of this half. I think we came into this half at only 35 to 65, roughly, around that point. And, the differential has not really changed much from that.
And once again, you get this in a lot of sports. I remember, like you talk to AFL coaches, and the amount that they talk about tackles, they don't talk about kicking goals, they talk about tackles. Now, the team that kicks the most goals is the team that wins, but it's about the pressure that those tackles create, to cause the turnovers, to put the pressure on, to make the mistakes. And this is the thing when we talk about power jams, it's like, oh, did the jammer do naughty? And it's like, very often it's about the pressure. Now we have 2 up, running around the outside, picking up lead against Scoobs. It's good to see Scoobs back on. They've obviously fixed whatever was the problem with her skates.
Takes a trip off the track there. I think recycled all the way to the back of the pack there. Still on the initial pass as
2 up comes through for the first scoring pass. Now Scooby probably could have come on the track a lot further up than she did, but she took the safer option. She went all the way back. She wasn't sure exactly who she had to come back in. That's really one of the next stages of her development, is to have that awareness. This 2 up gets another scoring pass, calls it off. There's 1:56 left on the clock.
That cracks the 100 points for Central Coast Southside.
Yep, 107 to 126. We've got a 19-point game. And where is the timeout? There's 2 jams left, but we could probably have 3 cracks at the sandwich, bites at the sandwich.
Sydney still have plenty of timeouts left in this.
Sydney want the clock to run down.
Exactly.
In fact, if Sydney get lead, there's a good argument for just
running the jam
out until the clock is gone. We'll see if that happens, as Roman should be getting lead any moment now, as Rex is blatantly multi-playing. Roman gets lead for Sydney, and a slight pack advantage. Disgrace stuck at the back. So we will see if Sydney are content to run this out till the end of the game, take the win, the 4 points or the 3 points. I don't know what the tournament score is. Roman gets 4 points for this game as Disgrace gets out. And here's where we will see.
Of course, using this full jam will expire the period clock. Decide not to.
Decide not to, yep. 1 more point for Sydney. 131, I believe the score will be anytime
there it is.
To 107. There will be 1 more jam. Or will there? How good is my math?
We should get this started.
And it will be Atis versus Glam. And we need 24 points.
23 points, yeah, I think it is.
23 to draw, 24 to win. Both of these teams will have nightmares about an overtime jam. Atis gets lead, and the clock has run out. So all Sydney need to do is call it to win the game.
Pack speeding up.
What Glam needed to do was draw Atis into a foul. Atis calls the game off, and the unofficial score is 107 to 131. Just wait for the confirmation on that.
Our points per jam for the entire game now.
And we see a lot of tit for tat, but you can see it's almost the first 3/4 of the game, 2-1 lead percentage.
Absolutely, yeah. It's purely been a game of lead jammer status. That's what's given it to Sydney in this situation.
And then you can see at that last little bit, fatigue kicking in, a couple of power jams, some attempts to take it long. But as I said, for the first 3/4, a very tight, disciplined game, really, for both teams. I would be surprised if it was a high penalty game. It did not seem like there was never a queue for the bin.
No, there wasn't, and we've seen that on many games, both last weekend and in 5x5 in general. Those did multiple blockers. We had a micro pack in the earlier game. We didn't see that so much in this game. I think we were down at 1 point to 2 apiece.
I think they were also keeping pack very well too, which
Yeah, I don't think I saw a single destruction or out of play penalty issued. Maybe 1 or 2 total.
Yeah, there were some strategic no packs, but not accidental destructions or weird shenanigans that could sometimes do my head in. So I think both teams will be pretty happy with that. Once again, South Central Roller Derby missing some very experienced players from their lineup, but also Sydney missing me. So
And that's got to be a big deal. You and VCAT.
if I had have played for Sydney, then South Central could have won this game.
On that note, I think we should wrap up. It's been a long day here at Niagara Park on the Central Coast.
Thank you for watching and tuning in. We really appreciate it here at Apex TV, and as much as it makes me grin, like, please do the things with the subscribey belly likey buttons that will hopefully make sure that our other videos make it to your vision.
Like and subscribe.
Nah, I've been Candy.
And I am the Flat Track Protocol.
Thank you very much.